Dr. Lena Vashkov never imagined her quiet night shift at the International Space Observatory would mark the end of the world she knew. The dome above the Carpathian foothills was silent, but for the soft hum of cooling systems and the rhythmic pulse of the telescope's motors. Below, Earth turned in its orbit, blissfully ignorant of the horrors racing to meet it. Lena adjusted the sensor ray, her pale fingers dancing over the console. She sipped her lukewarm tea, savoring a momentary sweetness before the endless data streams claimed her attention again. This week's assignment was straightforward: map high-energy emissions from Europa's south polar vents, log anomalies, prepare a report for the Planetary Science Council. It was the kind of work that let you lose yourself in the steady logic of numbers and patterns, a break from politics, from public opinion, from the petty rivalries of earthbound bureaucracy. At 2:17 UTC, everything changed. A shrill alarm cut through the observatory's calm. Lena froze, heart hammering, as a crimson warning banner materialized on her main display. Unidentified hyperspace signature, immediate investigation. She frowned, tapping the alert. The secondary monitor lit up with a pale dot drifting into view at the edge of the solar system. Impossible, she whispered. No faction has mastered interplanetary hyperspace jumps yet. The only known successful tests had been human-made, and none of those ships were anywhere near Mars orbit. She grabbed the headset. Control to Sector Command. I have a hyperspace incursion signature, reads as mass energy displacement, consistent with slipstream transit. Coordinates 60 million kilometers out, bearing 315 degrees. Static crackled. Then a calm male voice. Stand by, Dr. Vashkov. We're routing to High Command. The line went dead. Lena's pulse raced. She glanced at the live feed. The dot had multiplied. Now it was a fleet of dozens of gargantuan shapes, coasting into the inner system with unerring precision. Each vessel was grotesque in scale, an armored whale breaching the void, bristling with spires and turrets. Her training kicked in. She initiated automated classification protocols. The shapes triggered every warning flag: antimatter containment fields, gravitic propulsion arrays, unknown alloys. This was no civilian convoy. Then came the translation matrix scan for transmissions. Nothing. No greeting, no identification, no demands. A cosmic ambush. Lena's breath caught in her throat. She punched a command: open universal frequency. This is Dr. Lena Vashkov of the International Space Observatory. You are in violation of all interplanetary treaties. Identify yourselves and stand down. Her voice echoed through the speakers like a plea. Silence answered. Her console chimed, ballistic trajectories locking on Earth. In the seconds it took to blink, massive projectiles of charged plasma and explosives coalesced at the bows of the lead vessels. The system calculated impact times, Earth shaking, city-wide, civilization shredding. Lena dropped to her knees. No, this can't be happening. She transmitted an emergency override to Terra Defense Command, forwarding the trajectories and time to impact. Alarms sounded across every monitoring station on the observatory's external speakers. The world's news anchors' panicked voices wove into a frantic chorus. Meteor shower approaching Mars, collision risk, planetary defense, satellites scrambling, unidentified fleet, possible hostile intent. At mission control in Houston, a voice cut in. Terra Defense to Observatory, are you certain this is not a glitch? Repeat scan, triple verified. Lena replied, voice shaking. These are warships. They're locking on surface coordinates. The first shot hit at 2:23 UTC. Lena watched as the orbital feed lit up with violent color. A glowing streak pierced North America's night sky, arcing down like a comet of death. The impact crater blossomed beneath the Arctic Circle, vaporizing ice and detonating tundra. The seismic sensors registered a magnitude 8.2 quake that rippled across continents. Within a heartbeat, more followed. One after another, the fleet's supercannons broke Earth's quiet. From the observatory's hilltop perch, Lena and her colleagues saw the skies ignite, the orange flare of suborbital explosions, violet ionization trails as beams ripped into buildings, oceans, and forests. In the control room, technicians shouted coordinates: New York, Paris, Beijing. Lily Chen, The head communications officer went pale. "They're targeting our capitals." Lena slipped her headset off, hands shaking. The weight of her discovery pressed down, suffocating. Every simulation she had run had ended in horror. Now she saw it unfold in real time. Earth was under siege, and no one had issued a declaration of war. An incoming transmission hijacked every frequency, across every band. It wasn't a message, it was a jigsaw of alien code. Deep learning translators struggled against an unthinkable syntax. Lena tried to decipher anything. Mine, outer dimen, fragments of meaning. Surfaced an ultimatum, a threat, a sentence that translated roughly to, "Resistance is extinction." And then the static. Below, humanity's greatest metropolises were ablaze. The observatory's high-resolution cameras tracked plumes of smoke curling into the atmosphere. Jet streams carrying fallout halfway around the globe in hours. In South America, Amazon rainforest slums of the planet went dark under mushroom clouds. In Europe, ocean waters boiled as underwater cables lit up in surges. On the floor beside her, Lily sobbed. Lena knelt and placed a hand on her shoulder. "We need to get this data to the coalition." Her voice trembled, but the words were steady. "Coalition?" Lily managed. "What coalition?" Lena's mind reeled. The International Space Observatory was neutral territory, but its findings had to reach those still fighting. There were underground bunkers in the Carpathians, Indian command centers burrowed beneath the Himalayas, and secret lunar bases under Tycho craters, ice pockets of humanity that might survive. "We have to wake them," Lena said. Now, she keyed in the diplomatic channel codes, encrypted the fleet's slipstream coordinates, orbital vectors, impact logs, and the garbled ultimatum. Then she broadcasted them on every secure frequency, military, scientific, civilian. If even one outpost received the warning, Earth's survivors might mount a defense, might strike back. Behind her, the observatory's wall of monitors glitched black. A massive tremor shook the foundation. Dust fell from the dome's ceiling. The fleet had switched to orbital bombardment. "Shields on the dome," Lena ordered. The mechanical shutters slammed down, metal screeching. Earthquakes rattled floor tiles and rolled overhead pipes like thunder. Her peripheral vision caught movement. Across the room, technician Marcel Reyes collapsed, hands against his head as though trying to squeeze out the sound. He whimpered. "It's too loud. Make it stop." Lena bent to support him. "You're safe here," she said. "I promise." But she was lying. The blasts grew louder, a relentless drum. Electric power failed. Systems flickered off one by one. Emergency. Lights bathed the room in blood red. The hum gave way to mechanical shrieks as backup generators surged. Lena cursed under her breath and activated manual override. Outside the emergency panels, turbulence rattled the building like a freight train. The concrete support columns groaned. The floor beneath their feet felt liquid. Then CONVULSED. Lena forced herself upright. "Coordinate with Sector 9. They still have thrusters operational. If we can realign the telescope, we might track the remaining vessels before they warp out." Lily blinked through tears. "You really think they'll leave?" she asked. Lena's jaw tightened. The tactical logs showed the fleet preparing a massive war pulse. This was a hit-and-run cleansing operation. Arrive, obliterate civilization, depart before resistance could gamble in desperation. If they didn't catch the pulse mid-charge, they would never know the Imperial homeworld's location. But Lena refused to believe mercy was off the table. Somewhere in those alien minds was calculus, constraint, maybe even compassion. She had to force them to communicate, to negotiate, even if the only leverage was that humanity might not survive another. "Strike, do it," she said. "Align everything. Let's give them a reason to wait." Each second was agony. Lena's eyes burned from a lack of focus. Her skull throbbed in time with the ceaseless explosions. But she guided Marcel to a panel, had Lily reset the sight line, and cued the telescope's emergency override. Through a narrow viewport, she watched as the battered facility trembled. Then, a shimmer in the dark sky, a halo of violet energy enveloping the largest ship. The grainy image captured the warp coils winding up, glowing like twin suns. Lena held her breath. "Stay on them," she whispered. Transmit live. The observatory's remaining uplink dish turned skyward, relaying raw imagery and data packets directly to every known human settlement. It was a reckless move if the Imperials intercepted our frequencies. They could pinpoint our hidden bases. But humanity's cure for extermination was awareness. A heartbeat passed, the halo dimmed, the ship's engines ground as though hemmed in by an invisible vice. The violet coils stuttered, splintered, then collapsed altogether, dropping the vessel back into normal space. No warp, no departure. The fleet's supreme weapon had failed. Silence. For the first time that night, Lena dared to hope. Then the sky roared again. But this time from Earth itself, the thunder of distant storms charged with radioactive ash, drifting upward in thermal columns. The observatory's shutters shook upon their hinges. Lena exhaled and rose unsteadily. "This is our chance," she said. "We make contact. We offer terms. We show them we're not defenseless." Lily looked up, eyes red. "What do we have to negotiate?" Lena's gaze swept the devastation. Outside, what tasted like victory was laced with sorrow. Cities were gone. Millions were lost. But the sky was no longer a tomb. It still held possibility. She tapped her console. "We ask for a ceasefire, humanity's unconditional compliance in exchange for our continued existence. We offer knowledge, scientific data, resources, alliances. We show them what we can build together, not only what we can destroy." Behind her, the monitors blinked back to life as power surged. Lena felt a spark of defiance ignite within her chest. They sent an Imperial fleet to crush Earth with no warning, no mercy. "Just annihilation," she murmured, voice resolute. But they found they hadn't reckoned on the human heart. Outside, beyond the broken windows, the night sky still burned. But it was no longer a harbinger of doom. Alone it was a beacon, calling humanity to rise from the ashes. And Lena Vashkov, witness to the darkest hour, was determined to answer that call. In the smoky aftermath of the Imperial bombardment, Earth lay broken and bleeding. Weeks had passed since the night the sky burned. In some places, it still smoldered. Across shattered continents, survivors emerged from their shelters blinking at a world they barely recognized. Cities were skeletal husks. Once steaming metropolises had been reduced to cratered wastelands and radioactive dust. Millions were dead. Yet, amid the ruin, a flicker of defiance burned brighter than any star. One, gathering the remnants under the Carpathian Mountains, in a cavernous bunker hollowed from centuries-old limestone, the remnants of Earth's military and scientific leadership had convened. The vaulted chamber was lit by banks of emergency LED panels, their cold glare glinting off metal crates and hastily assembled workstations. Dust hung in the stale air like a mournful snowfall. At the center, a circular table carved from reinforced composite served as the nerve center of the newly formed coalition command. Around it sat four of the last survivors of Earth's pre-war hierarchy: General Arjun Malik, head of India's Himalayan Defense Network, his olive-green uniform marred by scorch marks and frayed metals. His dark eyes, normally warm, were now focused and unyielding. Admiral Sofia Herrera, last active flag officer of the United Earth Navy, crisp in her white service coat despite the grime. A jagged scar ran from temple to jaw, a souvenir from a boarding action on an Imperial cruiser that had gone wrong. Commander Victor Chen, leader of the Martian colonists, who had arrived via the battered freighter Red Comet just days earlier. His angular features were framed by the dust of Mars, and his voice carried the dry humor of someone who had learned to joke in vacuum suits. Dr. Lena Vashkov, astrophysicist turned savior, clutching a data slate overflowing with hyperspace logs and dimensional drive schematics. She had been hauled here by subgroup scouts after broadcasting the Imperial coordinates. General Malik slammed a fist on the table. They hit every major grid power, water, comms. They cratered the Panama Canal, collapsed dams across Europe. Our surviving fleets are in tatters. If we don't act, we'll be hunted down one bunker at a time. Herrera, leaning back in her chair, shook her head. We've evacuated 20,000 personnel to underground vaults and lunar outposts, but half of our nuclear silos went offline within minutes of the first salvo. The Imperials neutralized our deterrent before we even knew what day it was. Chen tapped a stylus on his data slate. Mars was lucky our orbital habitats were spared because they're off the Earth slipstream. But we can't reinforce you. Our freighters lack the shields to survive a single pass through that firing corridor. Lena cleared her throat, voice low but unwavering. I've shared everything I recorded, the naval strike vectors, the timings of their warp pulses, and the dimensional drive prototype my team and I have reassembled it from Taicho Station's wreckage. It's untested, but if we can calibrate it to strike their command fleet before they warp out, we might decapitate their operation. Silence filled the room. Malik stared at Lena with a mixture of dread and hope. You're proposing a suicide mission, he said. No, Lena replied. A precision strike. We send a small, agile vessel through hyperspace to their staging grounds, deliver a single warhead to their command ship's nexus, and warp back before they can react. Theoretically, the dimensional core can survive one more jump if we limit the charge and channel excess energy into the Annihilation payload. Herrera rubbed her scar. The residual radiation alone could kill any crew still aboard, but the burst might damage the drive beyond repair. Our only chance, though, may be to bet everything on it. Malik rose, pacing. And who volunteers? Our Marines are broken. The last shuttle crews are trapped on Titan's orbital ring with no return windows. We have to use what we have. He stopped, meeting Lena's eyes. Dr. Vashkov, you've seen their fleet up close. Do you know if they use living crews? Or are these automated war machines? Lena hesitated. From the transmission data, there were biosignatures, rhythmic life pulses under the armor plating, probably cyborg integration. They're alive, yes, and likely human in appearance under those neutronium shells. The realization hit everyone like ice water. These Imperials might once have been someone's child. Herrera slammed her palm on the table. All the more reason to end this, to save them as well as us, too. Forging unlikely alias news of the coalition's formation spread swiftly across the scavenged call networks. In Brazil's underground biolabs, geneticists set aside petty rivalries, offering to adapt their virus defense strains into protective inoculations for the assault team. In Siberia, Arctic researchers volunteered specialized torpedoes designed to penetrate thick hulls. Even the corporate warlords of the Amazon Exodus columns pledged their last stockpiles of fusion fuel. Lena traveled eastward to consult with Dr. Emiko Sato in Japan's underground geomagnetic lab. There, next to geothermal reactors still simmering beneath Mount Fuji, they worked out a method to stabilize the dimensional core for a secondary jump. If only for 50 seconds, it would buy just enough time for a return. Each calculation drew sweat from Emiko's brow and salt from Lena's tears as they imagined friends lost among the stars. Meanwhile, Malik and Herrera journeyed to the Indian bunkers beneath the Himalayas. There, they oversaw the assembly of the assault vessel, codenamed Resurgence. It was a stripped-down scout frame, no passenger modules, minimal life support, reinforced hull plating, and a single experimental drive chamber at its heart. The crew quarters would hold only a captain, an engineer, and a security officer. In the echoing workshops, former civilian mechanics and ex-military techs worked side by side. Rivalries from old wars were buried beneath a common purpose: keep humanity alive. Bolts were torqued with trembling hands. Wiring harnesses were taped where insulation had been stripped for parts. Lena herself soldered a Kestrel drive stabilizer onto the core casing, her fingers blackened with grease. One evening, as the mountain breeze whistled through a vent shaft, Malik found Lena observing the hull plating, her silhouetted figure cast in orange lamplight. "You're pushing too hard," he said quietly. Lena didn't turn. "I have to. If I miscalculate by a fraction, we'll either overshoot and end up trillions of kilometers away, or collapse the core on ourselves. I've seen the data. Our window is razor thin." Malik nodded, understanding her burden. "You're carrying the weight of every soul who survived that first strike. Don't let it crush you." She met his eyes then, fierce and vulnerable all at once. "I won't let them down," she promised. 3. Forging the Plan B. The end of the second week. Coalition Command had drafted the strike plan in meticulous detail. Insertion point: Resurgence would launch from the lunar base at Shackleton Crater, concealed beneath polar ice. Approach. Coastal scramble to trans-lunar orbit under the cover of a scheduled solar flare. That blinds enemy sensors for 17 seconds. Jump. Engage the dimensional drive at L. Hop through interstice. Target the flagship's slipspace proximity. Field and eject the warhead. Return. Re-engage the core seconds after detonation. Recalibrate for Earth coordinates and land near Coalition Command's fallback bunker in Patagonia. Each phase had been stress-tested in simulators patched together from surviving archive drives. Every second of the mission was choreographed to the millisecond. No margin for error. At the War Council, Lena finalized the crew roster. Captain Rena Salazar, a former fighter pilot ace whose wing went down defending the Panama Canal. Chief Engineer Massimo Ricci, the man who had kept Taicho Station alive on duct tape and prayer. Lieutenant Eiko Sato, a security specialist and the only survivor of the Arctic Research Station massacre. They were asked to volunteer for what was likely a one-way mission. Each agreed without hesitation when Herrera thanked them. Salazar's reply was simple: "We owe them that much." Herrera placed a Medal of Coalition Valor around Lena's neck, a symbolic gesture. For Lena was no soldier, yet she bore the mission's burden. Lena felt the weight of the medal like a hot coal against her chest. "This belongs to every survivor," she said. "It marks our resolve." The price of hope. 2 days before launch, the Coalition gathered for a final briefing. In a cavern beneath Antarctic ice, projection screens lined the walls with star maps and orbital decay plots. A hush fell over the room as Lena stepped forward. "Our enemy is ruthlessly efficient. They have no compassion for cities, for children, for art. But they are not gods. They have weaknesses. During our first encounter, their warp coils failed to engage fully. That gives us our opening." She tapped the screen, zooming in on the flagship's schematics. "This is the command nexus. It houses their slipspace, regulators, and central AI core. If we collapse these circuits with a focused pulse, their network will fragment. Their fleet will be without orders, vulnerable, and possibly forced to retreat." Malik leaned forward. "And if they don't retreat?" Lena's eyes were unwavering. "Then we fight them in space, armed with the same drive technology. We can become as mobile and unpredictable as they are." Chen nodded. "We become the hunters." Across the dark hall, Herrera's voice rang out. "Make them understand that Earth and its people are not prey. We will not kneel. We will not beg. We will fight with every scrap of what remains, and we will prevail." As the room exhaled, Lena felt something shift deep within her. Fear still gnawed at her bones, but on its heels came purpose. In the darkest crucible, humanity had fused grief and rage into steel. They had forged hope from ashes. Outside, the wind howled through the ice tunnels like a battle trumpet. The Imperials still orbited Earth, unsuspecting of the storm about to break upon them. The Coalition would strike at dawn, and though the price of victory might be the lives of the brave few aboard Resurgence, their sacrifice would ignite 100 suns of defiance. For in this coalition of the ashes, Earth's last sons and daughters had learned to stand as one, and the galaxy would never look away again. Asterisk into the cosmic maelstrom. Dawn in Shackleton Crater was a pale gray ribbon crossing the lunar horizon as the Resurgence emerged from its subterranean hide. Its hull, a patchwork of scavenged alloys and freshly welded joints, glinted dully in the washed-out light. Round it, a handful of support vessels, cargo haulers, stripped freighters, and an old survey shuttle hunched like wary beasts, their crews watching in tense silence as the assault team prepared to depart. 1. The launch captain Rena Salazar stood on the loading ramp, the lunar regolith crunching beneath her boots. She wore the Coalition flight suit, matte black panels reinforced with layered ceramics, and the pale insignia of Earth's alliance emblazoned over her heart. At her side, First Officer Eiko Sato checked the integrity of her pulse rifle, fingers flying over the electronic safety catch. Chief Engineer Massimo Ricci lingered near the quantum drive housing, his gaunt face lit by the soft hum of the containment field. Lena Vashkov hovered just behind the crew, clutching the last iteration of the jump coordinates on a laser-etched data slate. The men and women she had come to know only days ago now looked to her for every guidance through the interstice. Her heart pounded as she watched them part terror part pride. "Resurgence, this is Command," Admiral Herrera's voice crackled in their comm links. "Solar flare advisory. Interference window opens in 30 seconds. You're clear for launch." "Good luck, Captain." "Copy that, Admiral," Salazar replied, shoulders squared. She turned to Lena. "Any last words?" Dr. V. Lena offered. A small, hollow smile. "Stay in the void just long enough to make history and come back." Salazar nodded. "Let's give them a show." She strode aboard. With a hiss of seals and clicks of latches, the ramp closed. The hangar's massive doors began to slide down, revealing the crater's expanse and beyond it, the gleaming blue planet hanging in the sky. A hush fell over the station as countdown lights blinked in sequence. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Resurgence's retro thrusters flared, jolting the ship upward. A plume of fine dust swirled into the airless sky, drifting lazily before settling. The assault vessel rose on trembling jets, then pivoted toward Earth. In the control tower, General Malik and Commander Chen held their breath. The Resurgence cleared the hangar mouth and glided into trans-lunar trajectory, leaving a thin trail of exhaust that dissolved into nothingness. 2. Covert approaches. The Resurgence coasted toward Earth. Captain Salazar gathered her crew around the central holo table. The display showed Earth's geosynchronous belt, overlaid with projected solar flare blackout zones. Solar flare peak in T-2 hours. Salazar began. "That gives us a 17-second window of near-total sensor blindness on the enemy side. We punch through at 3,000 kilometers altitude, maintain a sub-flagship radar signature, then climb to L for the jump, Eiko Sato. Tap the map, enemy pickets will scrub orbital lanes for escape vectors. We need to mask our profile with a decoy. I've rigged the forward transponder to broadcast an old Martian survey beacon. Should confuse automatic scramblers for 15 seconds. Ricci nodded. I've also recalibrated the drive's containment during the flare event. The core can handle a 120% charge for dejumps, but only if cooled by the plasma stream from the solar event itself. He glanced at Lena. We hope the flare's coronal mass ejection is consistent with NOAA projections. Lena's jaw tightened. It's never precise, but if we mistime it by more than 10 seconds, we risk a partial collapse. She tapped her data slate to refresh the slipspace vectors. Make every second count. Above, the pale sun arced. Closer to its crest, Salazar stood, voice firm. Prepare for insertion. Helm, set vector, weapons. Stand by, engineer, power to core, science. Keep us on course. Let's go. The Resurgence slipped into low Earth orbit, hugging the night side to minimize detection. Ground-based radars flickered as the solar flare began to crackle through Earth's magnetosphere. The ship's communications antenna lowered, and the decoy transponder pulsed with an anachronistic Martian survey signature. For 17 seconds, 17 precious seconds, the Resurgence was a ghost. Its engines flared only faintly as the vessel ascended to the Lagrange point. Then, silently, the quantum core ignited. 3. Traversing the interstice space folded around the Resurgence like a closing fist. Stars smeared into long, ghostly streaks, then vanished altogether. The ship shuddered as the walls of reality bent inward, the viewports fracturing light into prismatic shards. A low hum, neither engine nor ambient noise, vibrated through every hull plate. Behind the console, Lena monitored the field's stability. Flux levels at 92%, 93, core temperature rising. She bit her lip. Brace for acceleration. The acceleration came as a pressure wave that flattened every frame in the cabin. Equipment strained, cables sang, and the ship seemed to stretch and compress. The viewports first glowed white, then black. Time itself felt like a liquid, pooling around the vessel. Moments later, though, moments in the interstice meant nothing. The pressurization normalized. The Resurgence drifted in a starless void, the cosmic maelstrom, where space and time frayed in a tapestry of lights. Outside the hull, glowing ribbons of quantum particles danced like auroras. On an alien horizon, the crew watched in awe, the terror momentarily replaced by wonder. Eiko whispered, "I never dreamed I'd see anything like this." Ricci's voice crackled over the intercom. "Strange readings ahead, energy signatures that don't match any census. Could be debris." From other warp failures, or something worse? Lena leaned forward. Primary objective, locate the flagship transponder lock. Secondary, avoid all large vortices. We don't know if they're stable. Ahead, a dim glow emerged, the colossal shape of the Imperial flagship. Etnam's maw, adrift in a current of luminescent gas. Its hull was mottled with burn scars from earlier skirmishes, proof that the Coalition's decoy pulses had reached it. After all, Salazar exhaled. There it is. Helm, bring us within 50,000 kilometers on a vector offset by 27 degrees. Weapons. Arm the warhead. 4. The strike key. As the Resurgence glided closer, the flagship's radiators flared, recalibrating to the new warp tension. Identification beacons blinked on its dorsal plate, symbolic sigils of the Imperium. Lena's heart pounded as she locked onto their central nexus. Warhead primed, Ricci announced. Ready to fire on your mark. Eiko Sato aligned the targeting reticle. Nexus junction in sight. Firing window opens in T-5, 4, 3. The ship's particle disruptor. A hybrid device channeling excess quantum energy into a concentrated pulse charged. Its coils glowed blue, then violet, as the core diverted power. Salazar's voice rang out. Now. Eiko squeezed the trigger switch. A beam of shimmering energy leapt from the disruptor's barrel. Arcing across space in a slender lance, it struck the command nexus with a muffled impact, a bloom of iridescent sparks, followed by a concussive pulse that rippled across the flagship's hull. The Etnam's maw shuddered, its stabilizer rings flickering. Alarms blared across every channel. Lena watched as the central slipspace inverter ruptured, gouting violet energy like a wound. The flagship's enormous engines idled. The other vessels in the fleet stuttered in unison, but then an explosion erupted at the disruptor mount. The containment field around the warhead core had partially collapsed, and the ship's entire forward section convulsed in a blaze of white-hot plasma. Brace! Captain Salazar shouted. The deck trembled, then pitched violently. Equipment flew loose. The warp containment field oscillated. Lena felt herself lift off her feet, then slam back down. Ricci's voice crackled one last time. Core corruption. Can't stabilize. Core. The Resurgence's quantum drive core exploded in a silent flash, enveloping the vessel in a violet halo. For a heartbeat, everything glowed. Then the world snapped black. 5. Descent and aftermath. When Lena opened her eyes, the Resurgence was screaming through Earth's atmosphere. The cockpit windows glowed red as plasma formed around the heat shields. The ship lurched, its flares roaring. Re-entry. At 7.8 kilometers per second, the AI intoned. Hull integrity at 43%. Life support nominal. Estimated touchdown in 3 minutes. Eiko's voice trembled. Did we get them? Lena struggled to her feet, vision blurry. She tapped the data slate. Against all odds, a signal beacon blinked on the screen. Flagship Nexus destroyed, fleet command disrupted. Her chest tightened as she whispered, "We did." Alarms blared. The ship pitched again, then stabilized. Salazar engaged the landing thrusters, screaming curses at the manual override. The Resurgence skewed toward the southern Andes, the intended fallback site. Below stretched a world scarred by war, smoke plumes, glinting domes of survivor enclaves, and rivers reflecting the dying light. Each crater told a story of loss, but also of defiance. The Resurgence's engines roared one last time. A plume of roiling dust and rock erupted as the ship touched down in a windswept bowl of basalt and ice. The landing gear groaned, then collapsed to a resting angle. Silence reclaimed the cockpit. Salazar exhaled, voice barely a whisper. "We're home." Lena pressed her hand to the viewport, eyes shining with tears. "Home," she echoed. The world outside was fragile, but it was theirs to rebuild. Round them, the crew began to stir. They had faced the cosmic maelstrom, stared down gods of war, and emerged alive. The mission's cost was etched in every scorch mark on the hull, but so too was humanity's spark. In the fading light, a single beacon signal pulsed from the wreck of the flagship's nexus, a silent testament that the Imperium's grip had been sundered, and somewhere across the galaxy, those who had watched the Resurgence's strike would know that Earth did not bow. And in its defiance lay the promise of a new dawn. No mercy. Just annihilation and Hopethi Andy's sunrise bathed. The battered resurgence in pale gold as Captain Salazar activated the external comm beacon. The signal pulsed toward Coalition Command, an echo of defiance against a galaxy that had presumed Earth's extinction. The landing site was a field of shattered basalt, dotted with twisted metal and frozen pools of brine. Yet around it, survivors, stirred, Coalition engineers, medics, and scouts who had rushed to meet the returning heroes. One reunion in the Ashen Bowl. Lieutenant Eiko Sato opened the hatch. Stepping into the thin mountain air, she helped Lena and Chief Engineer Ricci emerge, their faces gaunt but triumphant. The small contingent of Coalition soldiers, scarred veterans, all fell to their knees, tears and laughter mingling in a chorus of relief. General Malik strode forward, shedding his commander's stoicism to embrace Salazar first, then Lena. "You did it," he said, voice thick. "Even as the world burned, you gave us a reason to believe." His eyes brimmed. "You saved us." Across the frozen plain, the medical teams tended to the wounded from the landing. Engineers hurried to stabilize the resurgence, patching hull breaches and rerouting power. Lena watched them work, exhaustion threatening to overwhelm her, yet in every gesture she saw the indomitable will of humanity, too. The echoes of victory inside a makeshift command tent. The holo map of the former flagship cluster shimmered. Admiral Herrera leaned over it with Commander Chen, each marking the cascade of failures rippling through the Imperial fleet. Without their command nexus, Herrera explained, the fleet splintered. Reports filter in from every quadrant. Some ships have retreated into hyperspace, others are adrift, and a handful have surrendered to Coalition patrols. She tapped a node. "We've rescued over 5,000 Imperial officers and crew in the last 48 hours. Chen nodded thoughtfully. "We must decide what to do with them. They bear the symbols of terror, but they are lives." To his Martian-honed pragmatism was tempered by compassion. "We can offer clemency under parole. Those who renounce the Imperium may join our reconstruction efforts." Herrera's eyes met Lena's. "Your plan, Doctor, about negotiation has merit. We should broadcast an open ultimatum. Cease hostilities, release all prisoners of war, and recognize Earth's sovereignty, or face a united counteroffensive once we've rebuilt our forces." Malik tapped his war room baton against the map. "Let the Imperials see the scale of our alliance. They'll know that Earth is no longer a bleeding planet. It is the heart of a coalition that spans 3 worlds. Rebuilding a broken world. Weeks turned into months as the Coalition's combined efforts brought order to chaos. In the cratered cities of Europe, mobile fusion generators hummed back to life, powering decontamination units that cleared radiation hotspots. In Asia, hydroponic farms sprang up beneath protective domes, feeding millions who had huddled on dwindling rations. Under Lena's guidance, teams of astrophysicists and engineers began reverse engineering recovered Imperial technology. The dimensional drive blueprint, once a death sentence for its unwitting passengers, was retooled for civilian use. Plans were drawn for the resurgence too, a vessel dedicated to exploration and diplomacy rather than war. On Mars, Commander Chen oversaw the expansion of biodomes, their verdant interiors feeding the Coalition's fledgling navy. Lunar miners beneath Shackleton Crater harvested helium-3 to fuel the fusion plants in Patagonia. Earth's once poisoned skies cleared. Migratory birds returned in fragile flocks. Throughout all this, Lena traveled between worlds, a living testament to what one mind and one spark of courage could ignite. She lectured at underground universities in New Delhi, helped coordinate relief convoys in West Africa, and trained a generation of pilots on new slipstream protocols in Luna's training rings. For the trial of the Imperials, in a grand tribunal assembled at the ruins of Geneva's former peace palace, a site chosen for its symbolism. Imperial officers stood trial before a mixed bench of Coalition jurists. Protesters and survivors filled the rebuilt plaza, watching as the accused donned neutral gray jumpsuits. The prosecution presented harrowing footage: children's schools reduced to rubble, entire ecosystems scorched. Survivors testified to the cold calculus that had guided the barrage. Yet in the defense, some Imperial captains spoke of coerced orders, of unwilling soldiers manipulated by an autocratic command. A handful renounced the Imperium, pledging allegiance to the coalition's principles. When the verdicts were read, sentences ranged from forced service in reconstruction brigades to imprisonment in orbital. Detention, never execution. Lena watched. From the front row, her heart heavy but resolute, justice tempered by mercy. She whispered to Malik, "That's how we build a better future." 5. A new dawn. On the anniversary of the first strike, Earth held a commemoration unlike any before. Millions gathered in cities, underground halls, and orbital stations to honor the fallen and celebrate the survivors. Lena stood beside Captain Salazar and Admiral Herrera on a dais, overlooking a rebuilt forest in Patagonia, where saplings rose from the ashes. In her hand, Lena held a polished steel sphere engraved with the coalition crest. "We plant these saplings today," she told the crowd, "so that our children and their children may walk beneath green canopies, free from the fear of annihilation. We remember the night the sky burned, but we live in the dawn we seized from its embers." As she spoke, a fleet of white-hulled transports emerged from the upper atmosphere, their slipspace drives powered by the new civilian protocols. They formed a protective halo round Earth, a symbol of vigilance, not aggression. Above them all, the stars shone clear and bright, no longer silent witnesses. They were the road ahead, uncharted, beckoning, full of promise. Lena looked up, imagining the countless worlds waiting to meet humanity in peace. The threat of the Imperium had shown Earth its worst face, but in its crucible, humankind had forged its finest hope. For though the Imperials had come with no warning, no mercy, just annihilation, they had not counted on one immutable law of the universe: that hope, once lit, can never be extinguished. And as long as even one star still burned, the human spirit would journey ever onward, undaunted, unbowed, and ever free.